Overnight, I went from being a wildly popular genius author to a plagiarist that everyone condemns. What's more, some even besieged my home and intimidated and attacked my parents. The victim of the alleged plagiarism was the daughter of our family's maid. Her unpublished manuscript was identical to my novel, yet the date on it was always earlier than mine. However, every novel of mine was the fruit of painstakingly conceiving, researching, and revising time and again. I plunged into the arduous task of self-vindication, but no one was willing to lend an ear. My novels were taken off the shelves overnight, my manuscript fees were reclaimed, and I faced exorbitant liquidated damages. I was even reported to the school, and I was compelled to suspend my studies under the onslaught of insults. Branded as a habitual plagiarist, I became a pariah despised by everyone. The fanatical followers of the victim threw sulfuric acid on me, disfiguring me, and then ran me over, killing me. In my final moment as I closed my eyes, I couldn't fathom why, when it was clearly my novel, it had been published ahead of me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the eve of being accused of plagiarism. Time for dinner. 2 loud knocks on the door came from my mother, finally pulling my wandering thoughts back to the present. The unsent document on my screen was a short story titled Past Lives, which I had spent months crafting. Once published, this novel took the internet by storm. Within a week, a renowned film company purchased the rights to adapt it into a movie. Netizens lauded me as the rising star of online literature, gifted with exceptional talent and vivid imagination. Yet, these accolades crumbled in just half a month. Suddenly, everyone's attitude took a drastic turn, and they all began to accuse me of being a shameless plagiarist who stole others' work. Bewildered, I clicked on the trending topic, and was shocked to find that the maid's daughter had posted a 10,000-word accusation online. Since my mother worked as a maid in her family, she thought she was superior to me. After discovering that I could write novels, she forced me to ghostwrite for her, using my mother's job as leverage. The plagiarist rose to fame on my suffering, and she even watched my mother have an asthma attack and deliberately refused to send her to the hospital. Sue Lee's accusation was filled with such pathos that it moved everyone who read it. But I didn't plagiarize this novel. It was entirely my creation, and there was no way I could have ghostwritten it for someone else. I tried to find evidence to prove my innocence, but the screen recording Sue Lee posted clearly showed the time when the draft was completed. Comparing the timestamps, I was the one who published later. I was left speechless and firmly branded as a plagiarist. Sue Lee said, "I know how hard it is to create, so I hope everyone can be lenient. As long as Lin Xixiong apologizes to me and promises to reform, I will forgive her." With these words, Sue Lee was immediately hailed as a spotless fairy, and netizens pressured me to admit my guilt. But what wrong had I done? My parents supported me in defending my rights, but they were killed by Sue Lee's fanatical followers in a car accident. Our once affluent family was crushed by the astronomical liquidated damages. In the end, I was disfigured by sulfuric acid thrown by Sue Lee's fanatical followers, and then run over until I was reduced to a pulp. The excruciating pain of being crushed overwhelmed me again. Trembling, I clicked cancel send. After shutting down the computer, I remained in a daze for a long time. Why was Sue Lee's work identical to mine? Sue Lee was a lingering shadow in my life. It wasn't just because of the plagiarism incident in my past life. It was also because she had insidiously infiltrated my social circle. My best friend of 10 years was suddenly stolen away by her, and even the guy I had been flirting with took the initiative to pursue her. According to Sue Lee, I was a habitual plagiarist who had bullied and humiliated her. But I had never done any of those things. Instead, because of her false accusations, I endured silent isolation during my school years. Sue Lee posted on Moments again, saying, "Creation can lead one to discover unspeakable joy." When I enlarged the background image, I could see part of a computer screen with dense text. The more I looked, the colder my heart grew. It was the novel I had just finished and was about to send to my editor. Sue Lee's ending was exactly the same as mine. I couldn't help but open my own document for comparison. The word choices, sentence structures, and even the punctuation marks and typos were all perfectly replicated. This novel was based on my secret love story and was also my debut work. I had never shown it to anyone. I began to wonder if Sue Lee had implanted a virus in my computer, but I quickly dismissed this idea. Since Sue Lee had moved out of my house a year ago and I bought this computer 3 months ago, she couldn't have had the chance to tamper with it. This seemed an insoluble puzzle, and I couldn't figure out how to break the deadlock. It was not until my mother urged me to have dinner again that I finally calmed down. No matter what, since fate had given me a second chance, I was determined to uncover the truth. Sue Lee had already left traces of her creation on various platforms, so it wasn't a good time to publish my novel. I had been highly perceptive since childhood. I had won numerous literary creation awards since primary school, and my articles often appeared in newspapers. While others needed long-winded descriptions to depict a scene, I could capture its essence with just a few words. A renowned literary master whom I idolized once praised me for my abundant talent and charm, and said he was looking forward to meeting me at the pinnacle of our careers. My first novel was embroiled in a plagiarism scandal and was, in a sense, completely discredited. For a creator, such a blow was as devastating as a towering mountain collapsing before one's eyes. Amidst the chaos of thoughts in my mind, I suddenly remembered the unresolved plot twists in the ending. So I immediately turned on my computer and started revising. The rhythmic clatter of the keyboard brought me a profound sense of peace. It wasn't until 3 a.m. that I finished polishing the entire text. If the previous version was a promising debut, this one was now a near-perfect masterpiece. Satisfied with my labor, I picked up my phone, only to be confronted with a catastrophic discovery. Suli suddenly posted another update on her social media. Inspiration struck in the dead of night, planning to revise the plot. The comments were filled with concern, urging her to rest. My former best friend and crush even rushed to the top of the comment section. "Baby, you're staying up late to create again. Take care. Susu's writing is so much better than those fame-hungry writers. Looking forward to the release." What truly sent chills down my spine was the image she attached, a screenshot of the text, which was precisely the version I had just revised. How could she mirror my thoughts? Shortly after, Suli replied to all the comments. The original manuscript of this novel was accidentally leaked. It might not be released anytime soon. Her friends immediately chimed in. "What happened? Did someone steal your manuscript? So annoying. Is it really satisfying to steal someone else's hard work? Who could be so shameless? It must be someone close to you to get your unpublished work. Does Suli have any enemies?" Just like in my past life, Suli subtly insinuated that her novel had been plagiarized, and then our so-called mutual friends, following the clues, would discover that my novel matched the snippets she had previously shared. That was how I became the universally condemned plagiarist. But this time I hadn't even published the novel yet, so they couldn't find any identical works online. Still, they managed to drag me into the controversy. My former crush, Xiang-chan, messaged me privately. "Did you steal Lee's manuscript? I chose to like Lee on my own. You don't have to take revenge on her like this." I furrowed my brows. Had Xiang-chan always been this narcissistic and arbitrary? Ever since he confessed his feelings for Suli in front of me, I had long given up on him. I typed back indignantly. "I haven't been in touch with Suli for ages. Isn't it presumptuous to accuse me of stealing her work out of the blue? And we haven't contacted each other for 2 or 3 years. What makes you so sure I'm retaliating against her because of you? Your narcissism is astonishing." Then my former best friend also sent me a message. "Suli is always friendly with others. The only person who dislikes her is you. If you stole her work, apologize to her immediately." I wasn't hurt by Xiang-chen's accusation, but my former friend's words stabbed me deeply. I couldn't understand why she didn't trust me, someone she grew up with, or why she was so certain that I had plagiarized Suli. The same sense of panic and weichu I felt in my past life, when I was unjustly accused and couldn't prove my innocence, welled up inside me again. I tried to ignore these feelings and finally managed to calm down by turning off my phone, cutting off the stream of accusations. Unlike in my past life, since I didn't publish the novel, Suli actually released it first. She shot to fame overnight, becoming a sought-after prodigious author. With her beautiful looks, she was invited to major shows. Watching her on screen, talking eloquently about the plot and character settings of the novel, I couldn't help but frown. This wasn't right. She got everything wrong. The protagonist, who rose from the bottom, was driven by a fierce determination to prove herself to those who looked down on her. But in Suli's narrative, all the protagonist's good luck and help were presented as mere strokes of fate, and even her schemes were portrayed as forced actions. How could that be? Someone who fought their way up from the bottom couldn't possibly have no guile, especially after being betrayed countless times by those around her. Suli was spouting nonsense. I had once deluded myself into thinking that perhaps there was someone else with a similar mind, that it was just a coincidence of ideas. After all, the concepts of remote theft and mind reading were too fantastical. But now, it was clear that Suli's understanding of the characters was wrong. If the characters were developed according to her ideas, the plot wouldn't unfold as it did in my novel. So this novel definitely wasn't hers. The editor I had been in touch with for submission messaged me again, asking when I could submit the manuscript. But my novel had already been published by Suli. I felt extremely disheartened. Sighing, I looked out the window. A fisherman sat by the lake, creating a serene scene. Suddenly, a new idea flashed through my mind. I immediately turned on my computer and started writing. "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime." Suli could steal my work, but she couldn't steal my creativity. If I could write one novel, I could write 2, 3, or more. Creation was an endless ocean, and I would swim in it, never to be drowned. I didn't stop until the next morning. I had great confidence in this 20,000-word novel, and planned to submit it to my preferred magazine. Since it still lacked an ending, I didn't submit it right away. But when I opened the chat window with my editor, I saw a message from him. "I just received a realistic short story that resembles your writing style. Although it's missing an ending, the chief editor has high hopes for it. Can you write something similar?" The moment I saw the file name, cold sweat broke out all over my body. This was the new work I had just finished. How could it have been submitted to the editor in advance? I couldn't help but ask, "Is the author of this novel Susu Shaoli?" The editor replied, "How did you know? Are you friends?" As I expected, it was her. I took a deep breath, overwhelmed by a sense of helplessness once again. The editor mentioned that there would be an annual meeting next week, inviting all renowned authors. Despite not having published anything recently, due to my past achievements in the literary world, the chief editor had specially sent me an invitation. Sully, as a rising star, was also on the list. With the aim of uncovering the truth, I accepted the invitation. When I saw Sully, she was surrounded by people, basking in the limelight. She greeted me first. "Nanan, come here." Facing someone who had smeared and isolated me, I couldn't bring myself to smile or engage in idle chatter as if nothing had happened. But in the eyes of others, my behavior seemed arrogant and dismissive. They began to whisper, "I don't know what Lin Sinan is so proud of. She joined our company with the label of a prodigious literary girl, but she hasn't written anything in half a year. What right does she have to act superior to the popular Sully? Sully just said she knows Lin Sinan and asked us to take care of her, but now look at how haughty she is. She doesn't need our help." Sully frowned and said, "I don't hold grudges for what you did to isolate me in the past. Why are you embarrassing me in public?" In an instant, I was once again cast as the villain who was bullying Sully. They gathered around Sully protectively, while I was completely ignored, like a ghost. It wasn't until the editor called me away that I got a moment's respite. When I returned to the private room after talking with the editor, I found Sully holding my phone, and everyone around her was glaring at me with hostility. My heart raced. I rushed forward to retrieve my phone, but Sully suddenly stood up, looking at me with a look of humiliation. "So it was you who stole my work?" On the phone screen was my writing platform. Sully pointed at the dates and questioned me. I finished writing and sent the work to the editor on the 21st, and it was officially released on the 27th. "Why did you save it on the 22nd? Then she opened my chat records with the editor. "Even the work you haven't finished, your editor sent it to you, asking for something similar. In fact, you two are colluding to plagiarize." As she spoke, Sully started crying. The woman in a pink dress beside her shouted, "When Sully's best-selling novel was leaked before its release, we suspected you. But Sully said you two hadn't been in touch, so we let it go. Fortunately, we checked your phone today. You and your editor are in cahoots, stealing manuscripts." I was shaking with anger, gritting my teeth and repeating, "I didn't steal her work." The editor who arrived later tried to defend me, saying that there were many works of similar themes and it didn't mean I had plagiarized, and asking everyone to calm down. But they were convinced that the editor and I were in league, and they even demanded that the chief editor fire the editor. I never expected that I would implicate an innocent person. Clenching my fists, I looked at Sully. There was a hint of triumph in her eyes and her tone was condescending. "Sinan, as long as you apologize to me and promise never to plagiarize again, I won't pursue this. After all, you haven't caused me any real losses yet." Then she added, "I believe you can write even better works on your own in the future. One mistake doesn't define you." Her words were clearly implying that no matter what new works I created, she would find a way to steal them, and I was powerless to stop her. Several renowned authors were pressuring the chief editor to fire me and the editor. "You want to fire me? Fine. Then I'll stop creating. Sully, without me, will you still be a prodigious talent?" I retorted. A flash of panic crossed Sully's eyes. She gracefully nodded and said to the crowd, "Let's be magnanimous. I won't pursue this anymore and don't fire her. I don't want a bad reputation." The people around Sully admired her even more, thinking she was broad-minded. They shot me several disdainful looks. Even though she was the real plagiarist, I knew better than to fall into the trap of self-justification. I stood alone on the rooftop, letting the wind blow over me. Countless bold and fantastical speculations flashed through my mind, only to be refuted one by one. Unable to solve this mystery, I couldn't focus on writing. Coincidentally, my grandmother said she was going to Chishan Taoist temple and asked me to accompany her. Hoping a change of environment would lift my spirits, I quickly packed my things and set off. It took 3 days of traveling by high-speed rail, train, subway, and bus to reach the foot of Chishan. My grandmother stuffed a pile of snacks into my arms. "These are all your favorites. Have some before we climb the mountain." The editor told me that during these 3 days, Sully had been constantly pressured to finish the manuscript because the ending of her novel was still missing. The chief editor wanted her to complete it and release it as soon as possible, but Sully kept making excuses, saying she had no inspiration. I pondered in silence. As I expected, Sully had stolen my work. Since I hadn't written the ending, she couldn't either. All the glory and praise she was enjoying now were built on my stolen achievements. After a long while, I finally came up with a solution. I started a live stream. Since Sully seemed to know the plot only after I wrote it, I decided to write the ending she couldn't complete live on air. I changed the names of the main characters and key locations to avoid any accusations. To attract viewers, I even wore an eye-catching Wangzai-themed bodysuit. The title of the live stream read, "Quirky Girl Creating a Masterpiece Live." From time to time, some people entered the live stream to mock me. "What kind of quirky girl? Do you even know how to write? You're just trying to gain attention at any cost." But I ignored them all. I kept typing on the keyboard, and then pointed the camera at the screen. As time went by, more and more content appeared on the screen. Several Taoist priests who passed by stood behind me. They asked my grandmother curiously, "Didn't you say you were taking your granddaughter to see the master? Why is she live streaming?" My grandmother smiled and said, "The child is just playing around." More and more people entered the live stream room. Soon someone asked, "What novel are you writing, Jubo? Does it have a title? Is this the ending?" I couldn't find the first half of the novel with the protagonist named Longbatian online. "Has your novel not been Songjia yet?" The familiar profile picture floated into the live stream room. It was Sully. I pretended not to know and sent out a reward in the form of a fruits brand phone. The number of people in the livestream room directly reached 20,000. Not until I finished writing the ending did I finally turn around and show my whole face to the screen. This is the ending of the novel I just finished writing. Those who are looking forward to it can follow me. I'll notify you when it's songjia, I said, and then directly closed the live stream and saved the replay. I wrote the ending while live streaming, and Suli didn't have time to steal it. Even if she did, she would surely be labeled as a plagiarist. All the viewers of the live stream today are my witnesses. I can think of this, and Suli can obviously think of it too. So, I bet she doesn't dare to blatantly copy the ending I wrote. The Taoist priests who had been standing by finally came forward, but they didn't look very happy. They stared at the computer I used for the live stream seriously. After thinking for a while, they said, "Can we take a look at your computer?" I was a bit confused, but my grandmother kept winking at me. My grandmother has always been someone who believes in such things. Now seeing her looking so serious, I guess she was very scared. So I nodded. Anyway, they were just looking at it. They couldn't possibly smash my computer, could they? They picked up my computer and examined it carefully several times, until my grandmother said tremblingly, "Master, what's going on? Is there some evil spirit haunting my granddaughter?" The leading Taoist priest shook his head, but his expression didn't relax. "There is indeed something strange, but we can't figure it out for now. Fellow Taoist, you'd better take it to ask the master on the mountain." When the Taoist temple was first established, the abbot of the temple had traveled all over the place. He was robbed and lost all his belongings. My grandmother took him in. He had a few meals at our home, and then my grandmother gave him several hundred yuan for the journey. In return, he calculated the fortune for our whole family and promised that if we needed help, we could go to Chishan Taoist temple to find him. Since then, my grandmother has been obsessed with these things and would go to the Taoist temple to burn incense from time to time. My grandmother took my hand and nodded repeatedly. "Okay, let's go up the mountain now." On the way, the editor suddenly told me that Suli's manuscript had been rejected. Suli wrote the ending of that novel, and it was really like adding a dog's tail to a work of art. The chief editor almost fainted when he saw it. He even suspected that the previous part was ghostwritten. You have no idea how ridiculous it was. The villain who had worked hard throughout the novel was suddenly influenced by the female lead's words. The female lead put aside her family feud and got together with the male lead. It was like a princess whose country was destroyed marrying the prince of the enemy, who killed her parents and brothers. It was really absurd. The chief editor thought she was going to come up with something great, but she made a mess of it. Can she really write a novel? You don't know that there were several grammatical errors in her ending. She even used the phrase looking ahead and behind to describe the male lead's careful thinking. Murongxian looked ahead and behind and finally captured the city. Haha. Since the last time the editor was almost forced to resign by Suli's lackeys, he has completely sided with me and would join me in criticizing Suli from time to time. I looked at the editor's complaints, and my suspicion was confirmed again. The editor sent me the original document and I clicked in to watch. I don't know if it was to spite me, but Suli completely overturned the ending I wrote. She was just going against me. According to the plot, the female lead should break up with the male lead completely, but she made the female lead forget her hatred and get together with the male lead. Even the country that the villain had schemed for throughout the novel was given away. It was as if the female lead's brain had been touched by Nangong Wenya. When we reached the door of the Taoist temple, the master was already waiting for us. My grandmother stepped forward. "Master, you said my granddaughter would have a disaster at the age of 23. But she's only 22 now," she said. I was shocked because in my past life, I was splashed with sulfuric acid and run over by a car at the age of 23. The master calculated with his fingers and took out a piece of talisman paper from his sleeve. He pasted it on the computer bag hanging on my shoulder. Without any glue, the paper stuck firmly to it. I looked at the scene in disbelief. The talisman paper gradually turned black and then turned into ashes in front of me. The master looked at me sharply and nodded slightly. "Come in," he said. My grandmother was worried and seemed at a loss. I patted the back of her hand to signal that it was okay. When we followed him to the backyard, the master finally said, "Since heaven has given you a chance to start over, the ending will definitely not disappoint you. As long as you stick to your original intention, you won't go wrong." I was shocked. I didn't expect him to see that I was reborn. So I hurriedly asked, "Master, do you have a way to help me solve this situation?" The master shook his head easily. "A kind-hearted person will always have good luck. Why do you need my help to solve the situation?" he said with a smile and handed a string of beads to my grandmother. "This is what you asked for. Wearing it on your hand can keep you safe." My grandmother thanked him repeatedly. After the master left, she put the string of beads on my wrist. "I'm an old woman and don't need it. It's better for you to have it," she said. I was touched and silently promised in my heart that after this matter was over, I would accompany my grandmother well. Just as I touched the beads, the strap of the computer bag hanging on my shoulder suddenly broke. With a loud bang, all my study materials and various documents inside were scattered. It would be very troublesome to collect them again. I was so anxious that I immediately opened it to check, but the computer was completely broken. "What's this?" my grandmother exclaimed. She was holding a piece of talisman paper cut into the shape of a person. It was as if it had fallen out of my computer. I wanted to take the talisman paper to find the master, but it suddenly caught fire in front of me. Jinjia, a sharp pain attacked my brain, and I lost consciousness on the spot. When I woke up, my grandmother was by my bedside. She asked worriedly, "Master, is she okay?" The master looked relaxed. "The situation has been solved. She's fine," he said. I couldn't help but ask, What's going on? The master was piecing my computer together. It's just a crude stealing talisman. It had your hair and the hair of the person who cast the spell on it. It was placed in your computer that you use every day. You use this computer every day, so your work was stolen. But it also has its limitations. That is, it can't directly steal your thoughts. However, over time your luck will be affected, and even your smooth life will be haunted by bad luck. Fortunately, all this has been interrupted. All the clues are connected. Suli's mother was our family's nanny. She resigned on the pretext of being ill 3 months ago. I bought this computer at that time. She must have put the stealing talisman into my computer, when I wasn't paying attention. My grandmother held my hand in fear. I had no idea that there was such a person who played dirty tricks around my dear granddaughter. They will surely get their comeuppance. The master put the repaired laptop in my hand. They will definitely get their retribution. Such insidious tricks have long been abandoned. Now that you have broken the curse, the person who cast the spell will surely be backlashed within 3 months. Hearing this, I finally felt better. My grandmother cursed. Shameless. Trying to steal other people's things. It's their retribution to be backlashed. They deserve it. The master asked me to stay on the mountain to recuperate for a while. During this time, I wrote a new novel and immediately submitted it to the previous editor. 2 days after it was Songjia, it directly topped the hot list. Even the editor was praised for his discerning eye. When a well-known director came to me, Suli also made it to the hot search. She was accused of brutally beating her biological mother. Her mother was almost dying, covered in bruises. The police directly arrested Suli. Suli arrogantly said that she was a well-known author with hundreds of millions of dollars. She wanted to use money to get out of jail, and even threatened to make all the policemen who arrested her lose their jobs. These outrageous remarks were directly reposted on various websites. Suli was severely criticized. When she was prosecuted for intentional injury, Suli spoke arrogantly in front of the judge. "Do you know who I am? I'm Suli. I published Lin Sinan's novel, and he didn't dare to say anything. Why are you arresting me? Not to mention beating someone even if I killed him, so what?" I asked him to put the talisman paper next to Lin Sinan. He must have not placed it properly, or else why would it suddenly stop working? Suli started talking nonsense, and her words were all jumbled up. Everyone didn't understand why she suddenly went crazy, but they didn't let go of what she said. After all, Suli first appeared in the public eye as a prodigious author. Now that she had admitted to plagiarizing other people's works, it was a huge scandal. They didn't know why Suli would expose her own misdeed, but I knew very well that the master had said that Suli would be backlashed. Everything that happened to her was her retribution. Suli was exposed as a plagiarist and lost everything. Her manuscript fees were recovered, and she was burdened with huge liquidated damages. She even faced imprisonment. After waking up, Suli couldn't bear the blow indirectly. The director smiled and handed me a pen and paper. "This is the contract. Your novel is really well written, and I like it very much. After signing it, we will immediately start the adaptation and shooting this month. I also want to hire you as the screenwriter of the crew. After all, the original author knows best how to adapt the novel reasonably." The director spoke sincerely. After carefully reading the terms, I immediately signed the contract. After entering the crew, I took care of everything personally. From the setting of the scene to the dialogue and costumes of the characters, everything was confirmed by me before shooting. After the movie was released, everyone said that it was the most successful adaptation of a novel. I stayed behind the scenes and started writing a new work. Creation is endless. Even if someone can steal my work, my thoughts and my brain will always be with me. Today will be better than tomorrow, and each of my works will surpass the previous ones. I will keep progressing while she will be stuck at that moment forever.